The conference room floated in the darkness of space, a neutral station where enemies could meet without fear. Inside, two very different species sat across from each other. But today they shared the same goal. Lord Admiral Vex Nar represented the Jathian Confederation. His kind had ruled the stars for over 10,000 years. Their ships were works of art, their technology refined through countless generations. They moved slowly, carefully, never making a decision without consideration. Vex Nar's scales shimmered blue and silver under the station lights as he studied the holographic display between them. Across the table sat War Chief Gorthak of the Kralix Empire. Where the Jathin were elegant, the Kralix were brutal. Gorthak stood nearly 8 feet tall, his thick, armor-plated skin scarred from 100 battles. The Kralix had conquered 47 civilizations in the last 2 centuries. They didn't negotiate. They took what they wanted. But today, these ancient enemies were allies. The hologram showed their target. Human space. The humans expand too quickly, Vex Nar said, his voice soft but cold. 15 new colonies in 5 years. They take systems we marked for ourselves. Gorthak laughed. A sound like rocks grinding together. Let them build. We will take it all when we are ready. Human worlds will make good slave planets. Vex Nar tapped the display. Numbers appeared, showing fleet positions. We have assembled 3,000 warships at the border. Your forces and mine. Combined, the humans have perhaps 800 ships total, scattered across their territory. They are children, Gorthak said. They only left their homeworld 200 years ago. What do they know of real war? The Jathin admiral nodded slowly. Their technology is crude. Kinetic weapons mostly. Chemical rockets. They still use human pilots, instead of proper AI systems. They will see our fleet and surrender. Both commanders had studied human history. They knew humans fought among themselves for thousands of years. Small wars, primitive weapons. Nothing like the great conflicts that shaped galactic civilization. The humans had never faced a real military power. The ultimatum has been sent, Vex Nar continued. They must abandon their outer colonies and accept tributary status. They have 30 standard days to respond. Gorthak stood, his massive frame making the furniture look like toys. They will refuse. Humans are proud. Stupid. Then we crush them. And the galaxy remembers not to challenge its masters. The Galactic Council had already been informed. Most species watched with mild interest. A few expressed concern about attacking such a young civilization. But no one would intervene. This was how the galaxy worked. The strong took from the weak. Always had. Always would. On Earth, in the deep underground complex that housed the Admiralty, the ultimatum was read in silence. Fleet Admiral Elizabeth Carver stood at the head of the table, surrounded by the greatest military minds humanity had produced. The message from the Jathin and Kralix played on the screen. Surrender or die. Intelligence assessment, Carver said simply. A younger officer stood. Combined enemy fleet counts 3,200 vessels. Mix of Jathin capital ships and Kralix assault carriers. They're staging at the Velcor Expanse, 3 jumps from our nearest colony. Our forces? 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is closest. 512 ships. 1st and 2nd Fleets guard Sol. 4th through 8th are scattered across our territory. Someone at the table shifted uncomfortably. The numbers looked bad. 6, 2, 1, odds. But Carver smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. They think we're weak, she said quietly. They studied our history, saw our old wars, and think they understand us. They don't. She activated another display. It showed human warships, sleek and deadly, covered in weapons that most species had never seen before. For 200 years, we've been preparing for this. Every scientist, every engineer, every tactical analyst has been working toward one goal. Make sure that when we meet hostile aliens, we win. The other admirals nodded, They all knew the doctrine. Earth had no ancient technology, no thousand-year-old designs. Instead, they had something else. A planet full of people who spent their entire history getting very, very good at killing each other. They expect us to surrender or fight a defensive battle, Carver continued. We're going to do neither. Send the order to Third Fleet. Full offensive deployment. Ghost Protocol. A junior officer looked confused. Ma'am, shouldn't we respond to their ultimatum? We will respond, Carver said. With Third Fleet. Admiral Zhang will deliver our message personally. Around the galaxy, species watched and waited. The humans had 30 days to decide their fate. Most expected surrender. Some expected a brave but futile defense. None expected what was actually coming. On the outer edges of human space, colonies went dark. Civilian populations evacuated in secret. Defense stations powered down. To any observer, it looked like humanity was running, abandoning their territory before the storm arrived. But in the deep black between stars, 512 human warships moved in absolute silence. Their hulls were coated in materials that absorbed sensor sweeps. Their reactors ran cold, their heat signatures masked. They didn't move in formation like normal fleets. They scattered, each ship taking its own path, coordinating through quantum-encrypted communications that couldn't be intercepted. Admiral Zhang sat in the command chair of the UHSV Indomitable, humanity's newest dreadnought. Around him, his crew worked in quiet efficiency. No one spoke unnecessarily. Every person knew their role. ETA to engagement zone? Zhang asked. 72 hours, sir. The enemy fleet has begun moving into our territory. They think we've run. Zhang nodded. Let them think it. Let them spread out. Get comfortable. Then we show them what humans do to invaders. His tactical officer looked up. Sir, we're still outnumbered 6-1. Yes, Zhang said calmly. That seems almost fair. The human fleet continued its silent approach, invisible to every sensor the galaxy possessed. In 72 hours, the Jathin and Kralix would learn a hard lesson. Humans didn't become the dominant species on their planet by being weak. They did it by being the best predators in a world full of predators. And now, they were hunting. The combined fleet of the Jathin and Kralix moved through human space like a slow tide. 3,000 ships. Enough firepower to glass a dozen planets. War Chief Gorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor displays with satisfaction. The human colony ahead, his tactical officer reported. No defensive readings. The stations are empty. They ran. Gorthak laughed. Like prey animals. We take this system, establish a base, then move to the next. But Lord Admiral Vex-Nar, commanding from his own vessel 3 light seconds away, felt uneasy. The Jathin had fought many wars. They knew what retreat looked like. This felt different. The humans evacuated completely? He asked his crew. No stragglers? No defensive forces at all? Nothing, Lord Admiral. The colony is intact but empty. Even the orbital factories are abandoned. Vex-Nar studied the tactical display. The Allied fleet had spread across 5 systems. Claiming territory. Standard procedure. But something bothered him. Recall our outer scouts, he ordered. Tighten the formation. His communication officer looked up, concerned. Lord Admiral, we cannot reach Scout Group 7. They stopped transmitting 10 minutes ago. Malfunction? Unknown. They simply went silent. Vex-Nar's scales darkened, a sign of stress among his people. Send a recovery team. And get me War Chief Gorthak. The Kralix commander appeared on the screen, annoyed at being disturbed. What is it, Jathin? We are securing the human worlds. Have you experienced any communication losses? Gorthak checked with his own officers. Yes. 2 patrol groups. Minor losses. How minor? 43 ships. Acceptable. In hostile territory. 43 ships. Not minor at all. Vexnar's tactical mind worked quickly. When did you lose contact? Over the past 6 hours. Different locations. Gorthak paused. You think something is wrong? I think we should consolidate our forces. The Kralix commander growled. You fear shadows. The humans ran. These are just equipment failures. Before Vexnar could respond, alarms sounded across his bridge. Lord Admiral. Battle Group Theta. 200 ships. All signals lost. Lost? Explain. His sensor officer's hands shook as he worked the controls. They were there, then they weren't. No distress calls? No weapons fire detected? Nothing. 200 ships. Gone in moments. That was no equipment failure. War Chief, Vexnar said urgently. We must retreat and regroup. Something is hunting us. Now Gorthak looked worried too. His own losses were mounting. 17 more ships had gone silent in the last 2 minutes. The Kralix do not flee from ghosts. Are. Weird. Are. Weird. Subban. Then you're a fool. Vexnar snapped. Pull your forces back now, or the transmission cut off. Gorthak's sensor officer shouted a warning. Multiple contacts. Appearing from nowhere. All around us, on screens across both fleets, human warships materialized from impossible distances. They had been there all along, hidden by technology the galaxy had never seen. Stealth fields, cold running, sensor-absorbing hulls. The humans had spent decades perfecting the art of making their ships invisible. Admiral Zhang watched his tactical display aboard the Indomitable. His fleet had positioned itself perfectly over 3 days of silent maneuvering. Every human ship was exactly where it needed to be. All vessels, he said calmly into the fleet channel. Execute. Doctrine Omega. Fire. At will. Space erupted with violence. Human railguns fired slugs of depleted uranium, accelerated to 40% the speed of light. At that velocity, shields meant nothing. Matter simply couldn't react fast enough. The slugs punched through Jathin energy barriers like they didn't exist, tearing through hulls and continuing out the other side. Missile swarms launched from every human vessel. Thousands of them, each with its own guidance system, networked together through quantum links. They learned from each other, adapted to enemy defenses in real time. When point defense lasers destroyed some missiles, the others adjusted their approach vectors. The swarms flowed around defensive fire like water around rocks. Kralix assault carriers tried to launch their fighter wings, but human electronic warfare ships flooded the battlefield with jamming signals. Kralix fighters couldn't coordinate with their mother ships. Many crashed into each other in the confusion. Gorthak watched in horror as his fleet died around him. A Jathin dreadnought to his port side simply split in half, a railgun slug having destroyed its reactor core. 3 Kralix carriers vanished in fusion fire as human missiles overwhelmed their defenses. Return fire, he roared. All ships, return fire. But the humans weren't where sensors said they should be. Their electronic warfare systems created false targets. Dozens of ghost images. Kralix gunners fired at phantoms, while real human ships attacked from completely different angles. One Kralix captain managed to get close to a human destroyer. He ordered his ship to ram it. An old tactic that had worked against countless enemies. The destroyer simply moved. Not slowly, not cautiously. It dodged with impossible precision, its maneuvering thrusters firing in sequence so perfect it looked choreographed. Inside that destroyer, the pilot wasn't just flying the ship. She was connected to it through neural implants, her brain processing data faster than any normal human could. To her enhanced perception, the Kralix vessel moved in slow motion. Dodging was easy. Lord Admiral Vexnar tried to coordinate a retreat. The Jathin prided themselves on tactical flexibility. All ships. Fall back to Rally Point Gamma. Fighting retreat. Lord Ontax's. Of Lord all 3. But when his ships tried to jump away, they found human vessels already positioned along their escape routes. The humans had predicted every possible retreat vector and placed ships to block them. How? Vexnar whispered. How did they know? The answer was simple. Humans had war-gamed this exact scenario 10,000 times in simulation. They had studied Jathin tactical doctrine, analyzed centuries of their battle records. They knew how the Jathin would retreat before the Jathin did. A communication came through on open channels. Admiral Zhang's voice, speaking calm and clear, in perfect Jathin and Kralix languages. To all hostile vessels, you invaded our space, you threatened our people. This is the consequence. Surrender now, and you will be allowed to leave. Continue fighting, and we will destroy every last ship. War Chief Gorthak, proud and stubborn, reached for his weapons controls, but his second-in-command grabbed his arm. War Chief, we've lost 1,500 ships in 12 minutes. We must surrender. Gorthak looked at his sensor display. 1,500 ships. Half his fleet. Gone. The humans had lost perhaps 30 vessels. 30. Against 1,500. For the first time in his long life, Gorthak felt true fear. Lord Admiral Vexnar was already transmitting surrender codes. His people were ancient. Wise. They knew when a battle was lost. Attention, human fleet, Vexnar said quietly. The Jathin Confederation accepts your terms. We are powering down weapons. Slowly, painfully, other ships followed. The Kralix took longer, their pride wounded. But eventually they too stopped fighting. The battle was over. Of 3,000 ships that entered human space, fewer than 400 remained combat effective. Admiral Zhang allowed himself a small smile. Cease fire. Let them go. They'll carry our message to the rest of the galaxy. His tactical officer looked at the damage assessment. 47 of our ships destroyed, sir. 103 damaged. Acceptable losses, Zhang said. Send word to Earth. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet has secured human space. No further hostiles detected. Number 2. As the surviving enemy ships limped away, carrying their wounded pride and horror stories, Zhang looked out at the stars. The galaxy was about to learn a hard truth. Humanity had arrived. And they weren't prey. The gas giant called Kepler's Grief hung in space like a massive jewel. Its storms visible even from 1,000,000 kilometers away. Around it orbited 17 moons. And among those moons, the remains of 2 fleets circled like funeral processions. War Chief Gorthak had refused to accept defeat. After the initial ambush, he had rallied the surviving Kralix ships and called for reinforcements. 800 fresh vessels arrived from the Kralix home systems, ready to restore honor through blood. The Jathin, wiser, had withdrawn completely. Lord Admiral Vexnar sent a final message to Gorthak before leaving. You fight an enemy you do not understand. This is suicide. Apsy, Gorthak had laughed at him. The Jathin grew soft in their old age. We Kralix know only victory or death. Now, facing the human fleet again, Gorthak was beginning to understand what Vexnar had meant. Admiral Zhang's 3rd Fleet had been reinforced too. Not with more ships, but with resupply and fresh ammunition. They didn't need more ships. 500 human vessels were more than enough. Enemy fleet detected, Zhang's sensor officer reported. 814 vessels. Kralix configuration. They're forming a hammer formation. Zhang nodded. The Kralix always used the same tactic. Mass their ships into a dense formation, rush forward, overwhelm through sheer numbers and close-range firepower. It had worked against dozens of civilizations. Helm. Implement scatter pattern Delta 7. Weapons. Prepare firing solution. Epsilon. All fighters. Launch when ready. The human fleet broke apart, ships moving in seemingly random directions. To Gorthak, watching from his command throne, it looked like panic. They scatter like frightened prey. He roared. All ships. Full speed ahead. Close to boarding range. 41. The Kralix fleet surged forward, 800 ships moving as one massive wall of metal and weapons. It was an impressive sight, terrifying to most species. Zhang checked his tactical display. The Kralix were exactly where the wargame simulations said they would be. Humans had studied Kralix tactics for 50 years. Run every possible scenario. Zhang checked his tactical display. This battle had been won before it started. Target their supply ships first, Zhang ordered. Human weapons spoke. Railgun fire crossed the distance in seconds. But instead of targeting the warships at the front, the humans aimed at the tankers and supply vessels in the rear. Kralix formation doctrine kept support ships behind the main battle line for protection. Against most enemies, it worked. Humans didn't fight most enemies. Supply ships exploded as railgun slugs tore through them. Fuel and ammunition scattered into space. The Kralix fleet suddenly found itself cut off from resupply, in the middle of a battle that would drain their reserves fast. "Cowards!" Gorthak screamed. "They hit our support ships. No honor." His second-in-command tried to explain. "War Chief, without supplies, we cannot maintain combat operations for more than... I do not care. Forward. Kill them all." But the humans weren't done. Missile swarms launched next, thousands of smart weapons. The Kralix point defense systems locked on, started shooting. For every 10 missiles destroyed, 8 more got through. They didn't target the main warships either. They went for communication arrays, sensor clusters, engine assemblies. A Kralix destroyer found its engines destroyed. It couldn't maneuver anymore, drifting helplessly. A cruiser lost all its sensors, flying blind. A dreadnought's communication array shattered, cutting it off from fleet coordination. The humans were taking the fleet apart piece by piece, breaking its ability to fight effectively without necessarily destroying every ship. "This is wrong," Gorthak's tactical officer said quietly. "This is not how war is fought." But he was wrong. This was exactly how humans fought war. They didn't care about honor, or tradition, or showing strength. They cared about winning as efficiently as possible, with minimum casualties to themselves. Zhang watched the Kralix formation start to collapse. Individual captains, unable to communicate with command, made their own decisions. Some charged forward. Some tried to retreat. Some attempted to rally with nearby ships. The coordinated hammer became a confused mob. "Now," Zhang said. "Full assault. All ships. Engage targets of opportunity." Human warships dove into the chaos like sharks into a feeding frenzy. Their pilots, enhanced with neural implants, flew with precision that seemed impossible. They wove between Kralix ships, firing constantly, never staying still long enough to be targeted effectively. A human frigate found itself facing 3 Kralix cruisers. Normal tactics would be to run. Instead, the frigate accelerated directly toward them. At the last second, it spun on its axis and fired all weapons at point-blank range while simultaneously dodging return fire. 2 cruisers exploded. The third, damaged, tried to ram the frigate. The human ship simply wasn't there anymore, already moving to its next target. Inside that frigate, Commander Sarah Mitchell barely registered the danger. Her neural implant processed threat data faster than conscious thought. Her body moved in sync with the ship's controls. She didn't fly the frigate. She was the frigate. This was humanity's secret advantage. They had always been tool users, always extended themselves with technology. Neural implants were just the latest step. Human pilots didn't react to threats. They anticipated them. Their enhanced brains running combat predictions constantly. Gorthak saw his fleet dying. Again. Faster this time. The humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating complete superiority. His ships were fighting with everything they had. The humans looked like they were barely trying. "War Chief," his weapons officer said. "We've lost 400 ships. We must retreat." "No, Kralix do not retreat. All remaining vessels, ramming speed. If we cannot shoot them, we will crush them." It was a desperate tactic, born of rage and shame. 300 Kralix ships turned toward the nearest human vessels and accelerated to maximum speed. Maybe some would make it through. Maybe they could take some humans with them. Zhang saw the suicide charge coming. Tactical, implement containment pattern Theta. Don't let a single one through. Human destroyers moved into position, forming a loose net around the charging Kralix ships. They didn't have to stop all of them at once. They just had to slow them down, damage their engines, make them vulnerable. Railguns fired in precise sequence. Not to destroy, but to cripple. A shot to the engine here. A hit to the maneuvering thrusters there. Kralix ships spun out of control. Their suicide runs ended before they could reach any targets. Those that made it through the destroyer screen met the heavy cruisers. Human cruisers carried particle beam weapons, cutting tools designed to slice through heavy armor. They didn't waste ammunition on ships that were already dead. They simply cut them apart, surgical and efficient. In 15 minutes, the suicide charge was over. Not a single Kralix ship had successfully rammed a human vessel. Gorthak sat in his command throne, surrounded by alarms and damage reports. His fleet was gone. Destroyed. Less than 100 ships remained, most damaged. The humans had lost 18 ships total. His communication officer, one of the few crew members still alive at their station, spoke quietly. War Chief, the humans are hailing us. Admiral Zhang's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but not angry. War Chief Gorthak, your fleet is defeated. Surrender now. We'll allow you to leave with your surviving ships. Gorthak wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed at him to fight to the death. But he looked at his tactical display, at the handful of ships he had left. He thought of the thousands of Kralix who had died because of his pride. Why? He asked. Why do you offer mercy? Zhang considered the question. Because we're not monsters. We defended our territory. That's all. We don't need to kill every Kralix in space to prove our point. Gorthak felt something break inside him. Not his spirit exactly, but his understanding of the universe. The Kralix took what they wanted through strength. They respected only power, but these humans had power and chose to be merciful. He didn't understand it. I accept, he said finally. We surrender. The few surviving Kralix ships powered down their weapons and began the long journey home. They would carry tales of the human fleet, of their impossible weapons and tactics, of their mercy that was somehow more frightening than cruelty would have been. Zhang watched them go. His crew celebrated around him, but he felt no joy. Only relief that it was over. Send a message to Fleet Command, he told his communication officer. Human space is secure. No further hostile activity detected. Requesting permission to return to Earth. The answer came quickly. Permission granted. Well done, Third Fleet. Come home. As the human ships formed up for the journey back, Zhang looked one last time at the battlefield. Thousands had died here today. Most of them enemy, but some human too. Every loss mattered. He hoped this would be the last time humanity needed to demonstrate its strength. But deep down, he knew better. The galaxy was a dangerous place. There would be other threats, other battles. But now, at least, the galaxy knew. Humanity was ready. The Jathin homeworld of Velshara was old beyond human comprehension. Cities built over thousands of years, stretched across continents. Ancient towers reached into purple skies. And in the capital, in a chamber carved from a single crystal that had taken 3 centuries to shape, Lord Admiral Vex Nar made his report. The Council of Elders sat in a circle around him, their scales dulled with age, their eyes sharp with wisdom accumulated over lifetimes. They listened in silence as Vex Nar described the battle, the losses, the complete failure of their invasion. 3,000 ships, Elder Casteth said finally. We sent 3,000 ships. How many returned? 342, Vex Nar answered. Most damaged. Silence fell over the chamber. The Jathin had not suffered such a defeat in 5,000 years. "Show us." Another elder commanded. Vexnar activated the holographic display. Battle footage played, captured by surviving ships. The elders watched human vessels materialize from nowhere, watched railgun fire tear through shields that had protected Jathin ships for millennia, watched their proud fleet scattered and destroyed in minutes. "Their technology," Elder Casteth said, "it is not superior to ours. Our sensors are more precise, our shields stronger, our ships larger." "Yes, Elder," Vexnar agreed. "But they use what they have differently. They do not fight for honor or glory. They fight to win. Every tactic, every weapon, every ship design exists for one purpose: to kill the enemy efficiently." Another elder spoke up. "The war chief Gorthak. He continued fighting after you withdrew?" "Yes. He took 800 fresh Kralix ships to Kepler's Grief. The humans destroyed them in under an hour." "And human losses?" Vexnar hesitated. This was the part that frightened him most. In the first battle, they lost 47 ships. In the second, 18. The math was simple and terrible. Humans had destroyed over 2,500 enemy vessels, while losing 65 of their own. Nearly 40-to-1 kill ratio. "Impossible," one elder whispered. But Vexnar shook his head. "I verified the numbers myself. The humans are not invincible. They die. Their ships can be destroyed, but they are." He searched for the right word. "Efficient. Like a machine designed only for war." Elder Kosteth stood, a sign of deep concern. "What else do we know about this third fleet?" "That is the worst news, elders." Vexnar pulled up intelligence reports. Third Fleet is not their primary force. They have 8 expeditionary fleets total. First and Second Fleet remain in their home system, guarding Earth. Intelligence suggests those fleets carry even more advanced weapons. What weapons could be more advanced than what we faced? We do not know, but human transmissions reference something called nova torpedoes and stellar disruptors. Our analysts believe these may be stellar-scale weapons. The implications hung in the air. The Jathin had star-killer weapons too. But they were ancient, carefully controlled, used only as final deterrents. The humans apparently had them and were willing to deploy them with their fleets. Across the galaxy, the Kralix Empire was learning the same lessons, but learning them harder. War Chief Gorthak had survived, barely. His flagship limped into Kralix space 3 weeks after the battle. He expected to be executed for his failure. Instead, the High Council demanded his testimony. The Kralix respected strength above all. Gorthak had always been the strongest, the most successful conqueror. Now, he stood before the council, defeated and humbled. "You failed," the council leader stated simply. "Yes," Gorthak answered. "Among the Kralix, there was no point in denying failure. The humans are stronger than we knew. Yes. Can they be defeated?" Gorthak thought carefully before answering. "Perhaps. With every ship in the Empire, with careful planning, with perfect execution. Perhaps. But the cost would be..." He paused. "Everything. We would lose everything, and might still fail." The council leader's eyes narrowed. "You recommend surrender?" "I recommend we do not fight them again," Gorthak said. "Leave the humans alone." It was the hardest thing he had ever said. Admitting weakness went against everything the Kralix believed. But he had seen what the humans could do. He would not lead his people into extinction out of pride. The council debated for days. Meanwhile, across Kralix space, subject worlds saw their chance. If the mighty Kralix had been defeated, perhaps they could win their freedom. Rebellions sparked on a dozen planets. Kralix garrison forces, already weakened by losses to the humans, struggled to contain the uprisings. The Empire, which had seemed unshakable for centuries, began to crack. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Representatives from 47 species gathered at the neutral station, all watching the same battle footage that had been leaked across every network. Ambassador Tisara of the Quellan hierarchy spoke first. "We must address this immediately. The humans have demonstrated military capability far beyond what we estimated. They destroyed two great powers," another ambassador added. "Who's to say they'll stop there?" The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted to impose sanctions on humanity, force them to disarm. Others, more practical, pointed out that humanity had acted in self-defense. The Jothin and Kralix had invaded human space, not the other way around. Finally, a message arrived from Earth. The human ambassador was requesting an audience with the full council. Ambassador Jennifer Chen had been preparing for this moment since the Third Fleet's victory. She stood before the assembled galactic community, aware that every word would shape humanity's future. "Members of the council," she began, "my people have defended ourselves against unprovoked aggression. We make no apology for that." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Chen continued. "However, we recognize that our methods were shocking to many of you. Humanity does not enjoy war. We are not a warrior species seeking conquest. But we are a species that survives, and survival means being able to defend ourselves effectively." Ambassador Tisara stood. "You speak of defense, but your weapons, your tactics, they are designed for overwhelming offense." "Yes," Chen agreed simply. "The best defense is to make aggression too costly to contemplate. The Jothin and Kralix learned this lesson. We hope no one else needs to." Another ambassador spoke up. "What assurance do we have that humanity won't use this power against others?" Chen pulled up a document on the chamber's displays. "This is the Human Space Accord. We are presenting it to this council today. It states clearly, humanity will not initiate aggression against any species. We seek trade, cooperation, and mutual defense. But any aggression against human interests will be met with total retaliation." "Total retaliation," Tisara repeated. "That sounds like a threat." "It's a promise," Chen corrected. "We are honest about our capabilities and our intentions. We will not threaten you with vague warnings. We will not build weapons in secret and then claim peaceful intentions. We're showing you exactly what we have and what we'll do with it. Transparency, not deception." She let that sink in before continuing. "Additionally, we are offering defensive pacts to any species that wishes to ally with us. We will protect our allies as fiercely as we protect ourselves." The chamber erupted in argument. Some species saw opportunity. Others saw danger. But everyone understood. The galaxy had changed. Back on Earth, in a quiet office in Geneva, Fleet Admiral Carver watched the council proceedings on a screen. Her deputy sat beside her. "Do you think they'll accept our terms?" he asked. Carver shrugged. "Some will, some won't. But they'll all think twice before threatening us again." The Third Fleet performed beyond expectations. "They performed exactly as expected," Carver corrected. "We trained them for 200 years. For this exact scenario. Zhang did well." Zhang. Her deputy looked at classified reports on his tablet. "The other fleets are ready if needed." 74. "Let's hope they're not," Carver said. "We proved our point. Now comes the hard part. Proving we can be trusted with this much power." She turned off the screen and looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, people were celebrating humanity's victory. They didn't understand yet that the real challenge was just beginning. Winning the battle was easy. Winning the peace would be harder. 6 months after the battles at Kepler's Grief, the galaxy looked very different. The Galactic Council station hung in space at the exact gravitational center of 47 systems, a massive structure that had taken 3 centuries to build. At its heart was the Chamber of Voices, where representatives from every major civilization met to decide the future of their shared space. Today, for the first time in Council history, a human would sit among them as an equal. Ambassador Chen walked through the station's corridors, her security detail trailing behind. Other ambassadors nodded to her as she passed, some with respect, some with fear, a few with barely concealed hostility. She acknowledged them all equally. The chair of humanity had existed for 200 years, empty and waiting. It had been a symbolic gesture, the council's way of welcoming newcomers while expecting they'd never be important enough to actually claim it. Now Chen approached that empty seat, aware that every eye in the chamber was on her. She sat down. The chair adjusted to her height automatically, accepting her presence. Elder Kosteth of the Jathin spoke first. His civilization was old enough to remember when this chamber was built. We welcome humanity to the Council of Voices. Your people have earned their place here. It was a carefully neutral statement. Not celebrating humanity's arrival, but not opposing it either. The Jathin had learned their lesson. Ambassador Tisara of the Quellan hierarchy was less diplomatic. Before we proceed, I think we must address the elephant in the room. She had learned that human phrase specifically for this moment. Humanity has demonstrated overwhelming military force. How can we trust that this council will not simply become a rubber stamp for human decisions? Chen had expected this. The same way we trust that elder species won't abuse their experience and connections, through transparency, through keeping our word, through demonstrating that our strength serves peace rather than undermining it. Pretty words, Tisara said, but words are cheap. Then let me offer more than words. Chen activated a holographic display. This is the current deployment of all 8 human expeditionary fleets. The display showed human space clearly. The positions of every major military asset were marked. Several ambassadors leaned forward in shock. You're revealing your military dispositions? One asked. Yes. We're showing you exactly where our forces are and what they're doing. 1st and 2nd Fleet guard Earth. 3rd Fleet patrols our outer colonies. 4th Fleet is here, at the junction of human space and Quellan territory, available to assist if the Quellan face threats from the rimward sectors. Tisara looked at the display suspiciously. Why would you offer military aid to us? Because 3 months ago, your colony at Quellan 7 was raided by pirates from the Broken Worlds. Your defense fleet was stretched thin. The raiders got away with 2 cargo ships, full of refined metals. 4th Fleet could have stopped them. We didn't intervene because we weren't invited. The Quellan ambassador sat back, stunned. That raid had been classified information. Chen continued. Humanity isn't interested in conquest. We have more territory than we can properly develop in the next century. What we want is stability. We want to trade freely, explore new worlds, and not worry about some ambitious empire deciding we're their next target. So you'll be the galaxy's police force? Another ambassador asked. No. We'll be the galaxy's deterrent. There's a difference. We're not interested in small disputes or internal politics. But if another major power decides to start a war of conquest, we'll stop them, quickly and decisively. Lord Admiral Vexnar, now representing the Jathin Confederation, spoke up. And what do you charge for this protection? Respect, Chen said simply. Treat humans as equals. Trade with us fairly. Don't try to manipulate or control our development. That's all we ask. The chamber fell silent as representatives considered her words. Finally, Ambassador Reltalk of the Merchant Guilds spoke. His people cared only about profit, which made them refreshingly direct. I have a question about human technology. Your ships use kinetic weapons primarily. Railguns, missiles, physical projectiles. Most species moved past such crude methods millennia ago. Chen smiled. She had hoped someone would ask. That's an excellent observation. Would you like to know why we still use them? Well, thanks for watching. Chen smiled. Why we still use them? Please. Because they work. Energy shields can be calibrated to stop energy weapons, They're designed to deflect particle beams, absorb laser fire, disrupt plasma, but a solid object, moving at 40% of light speed? Physics doesn't care about your shields. Mass times velocity equals impact. It's simple, brutal, and effective. She pulled up technical diagrams. Humans developed in a competitive environment. Every advance in weapons was met with advances in armor. Every new defense was countered with new attacks. For millennia, we refined the art of killing each other. When we reached space, we brought all that knowledge with us. That's barbaric, someone muttered. Perhaps, Chen acknowledged. But it's also why we're very good at defending ourselves. We don't fight the way you expect, because we developed our tactics against enemies who constantly adapted. Every human military doctrine assumes the enemy will learn and counter our methods. So we built in redundancy, flexibility, and overwhelming force. She let that sink in before continuing. Which brings me to humanity's proposal for the Council. We want to establish a mutual defense network. Any council member can sign on. If you're attacked, we'll help defend you. In exchange, you provide us with resources, trade access, and intelligence sharing. Basically, we become your vassals, Tazara said. No. You become our partners. The treaty terms are equal. You're not obligated to help us in offensive actions. Only defense. And you can leave the pact at any time. With 6 months' notice, Ambassador Reltalk looked at the proposal carefully. This is actually quite favorable. The protection of human fleets in exchange for trade and information? Many species would benefit. That's the idea. Humanity can't be everywhere. But if we have allies throughout the galaxy, sharing intelligence, warning of threats, working together, we create stability. Stable systems are profitable systems. Over the next 3 hours, Chen presented the full framework. A network of mutual defense, trade agreements, technology sharing programs, and joint exploration initiatives. It wasn't perfect, but it was more comprehensive than anything the Council had managed in centuries. Finally, Elder Casteth called for a vote. All in favor of accepting humanity's proposals and establishing the Mutual Defense Network? 32 species voted in favor. 8 voted against. 7 abstained. Chen felt relief wash over her. It was done. Humanity had gone from newcomers to major power in less than a year. But her work wasn't finished. After the session ended, she met privately with Lord Admiral Vex Nar. The old Jathin looked tired. Your people fought well, Chen said. No shame in losing to a superior force. Vex Nar's scales shifted colors, showing complex emotions. We are an old species, Ambassador. We have seen many civilizations rise and fall. Usually, the young races are arrogant, believing their strength makes them wise. But you are different. How so? You know you are strong. You do not need to prove it anymore. Now you seek to use that strength carefully. That is wisdom. Chen smiled. We've made plenty of mistakes in our history. Wars, genocides, near-extinction events. We learned from them. We know what unchecked power can do. I hope you remember that as humanity grows stronger. Vexnar said. Power has a way of making people forget their lessons. We'll remember. We have to. Outside the station, in the docking bays, ships from dozens of species mingled. Human destroyers floated alongside Quellan traders. Jathin science vessels. Even a few Kralix merchants who had broken away from the dying empire. The galaxy was changing, adapting to its new reality. Admiral Zhang stood on the observation deck of his flagship, now stationed permanently at the council station as part of the human security detachment. He watched the mixing of ships and cultures with satisfaction. Strange, isn't it? His second officer said. 6 months ago we were fighting them. Now we're protecting them. Zhang nodded. That's diplomacy. The fighting was the easy part. This is where it gets complicated. Do you think it'll last, the peace? For a while. long enough for everyone to get used to working together. Then some new threat will emerge, or some ambitious species will think they can challenge us, and we'll have to remind them why that's a bad idea. And if no one challenges us? Zhang considered that. Then maybe we really will have peace. Wouldn't that be something? Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Carver was preparing her retirement speech. She had served for 43 years, had overseen the development of humanity's expeditionary fleets, and had guided them through their first real test. Now, it was time to let younger officers take over. But before she left, she recorded a message for her successor, to whoever sits in this chair next. Remember that our weapons exist to prevent war, not to start them. Every ship we build, every weapon we deploy, every tactic we develop, must serve the goal of protecting humanity and our allies. The moment we start using our strength to bully or conquer, we become everything we fought against. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. The galaxy fears us now. That's useful. But it's not enough. We need them to trust us too. Fear keeps enemies away. Trust builds alliances. We'll need both to survive in the long term. She ended the recording and looked out at the sky. Somewhere up there, human ships patrolled the stars, protecting colonies that hadn't existed when she was born. Children were growing up on worlds dozens of light years from Earth, never knowing the fear of alien invasion because humanity had proven it could defend them. It was enough. She had done her part. The rest was up to the next generation. Ambassador Chen finished her last meeting of the day and returned to her quarters on the station. Messages awaited her from Earth, from colonies, from allies and former enemies, all wanting something from humanity. She would answer them all, eventually. But tonight, she just wanted to look at the stars. Her window faced toward Earth, too distant to see with the naked eye, but there, nonetheless. Home. The world that had created a species capable of such violence and such compassion in equal measure. Humans had always been paradoxes, capable of terrible cruelty and astounding kindness, warlike and peaceful, savage and civilized. They had brought all of those contradictions to the stars with them. Now they would see which side won out. Chen smiled. She was betting on humanity. They had made it this far. After all, the galaxy was vast and dangerous and full of unknowns. But humanity had faced the first test and passed. They had proven they could defend themselves. Now came the harder test, proving they deserved to be defended. Outside her window, ships passed in the darkness. Tiny lights moving against the infinite black. Human ships and alien ships, side by side, partners in an uncertain future. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was a start.